It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Ibadan. The sky was bright and the air was filled with the sounds of drums and joy. Adaora stood in front of the mirror in her hotel suite, radiant in her ivory lace wedding gown. Her heart fluttered, not from fear, but pure excitement. Today, she was marrying Tunde, the man who had loved her deeply, patiently, and fiercely. Family and friends gathered in the large Anglican cathedral at Bodija, dressed in vibrant asoebi. The atmosphere was electric. After the ceremony, everyone moved to the reception venue where a live band played, and guests danced, ate, and celebrated. In the middle of the celebration, a woman with sharp eyes and a knowing smile approached Adaora. She was dressed in a purple and gold iro and buba, her gail towering over her small frame. "You may not remember me," she said, handing Adaora a small wooden box wrapped in gold ribbon. "I'm your late mother's cousin, Auntie Neka. This is for fruitfulness. It comes from your maternal lineage." Adaora smiled politely and thanked her, even though a strange chill ran down her spine. Later that evening, after all the guests had left and they were finally alone in their new home, Adaora opened some of the gifts, but not the box from Auntie Neka. She set it aside, telling Tunde, "We'll look at that later." She had no idea that this tiny box would shape their destiny. 15 years later, the box still sat unopened, hidden in a drawer collecting dust. And still, no child. Adaora and Tunde had faced every form of medical examination possible. Specialists in Ibadan, Lagos, and even Accra gave them clean bills of health. "There's nothing wrong with you," doctors would say. "Just give it time." But time was the very thing they were running out of. Adaora had conceived 4 times. Each time her joy was short-lived, miscarriages before the 3rd month. Every loss left a deeper wound. She began to dread pregnancy tests. The disappointment was unbearable. She tried everything: churches, fasts, midnight prayers. Tunde took her to prayer mountains. Her friends introduced her to herbalists and spiritualists. She tried some, rejected others. The mixture of faith, desperation, and grief consumed her. Baby showers became her worst nightmare. Friends stopped inviting her, assuming she'd say no. Some even stopped calling entirely. Tunde tried to remain strong. "It will happen, love," he always said, but Adaora saw it in his eyes: doubt, sadness, helplessness. One night, lying in bed, Adaora whispered, "Maybe God forgot me." Tunde turned and held her tightly. God never forgets. Our time will come. But deep down, even she wasn't sure anymore. One cloudy afternoon, Tunde drove Adaora toward the outskirts of Ibadan, near Oke Ogun. He didn't tell her where they were going. She only realized when they pulled up to a compound with strange red markings and a man in a white robe standing by the gate. "Tunde, what is this place?" she asked. "It's just someone who helps people like us. You brought me to a herbalist,
without telling me?" Before he could respond, the man greeted them and ushered them in. The herbalist took one look at Adaora and said, "Your spirit is already resisting. Husband, talk to your wife. If her heart is not in this, it will not work." Adaora's eyes narrowed. "I'm not drinking anything from this man." The herbalist offered her a thick black concoction. She pushed it away. Back home, the argument exploded. "You tricked me," she yelled. "I was only trying to help," Tunde shouted back. They didn't speak for 3 days. The silence was heavy, filled with pain and frustration. Tunde eventually broke it. "I'm sorry. I just want us to be happy." Adaora wiped her tears. "Don't take me to places I haven't agreed to. I believe God is still God. Even after 15 years, His time is best." 3 days later, Adaora attended the wedding of Mrs. Ezine's daughter, her longtime friend. It was held at a popular event center in Dugbe. Adaora wore a peach-colored ankara and tried to enjoy herself. But beneath her smile, her heart still ached. She stayed near the buffet area, hoping to avoid too much socializing. Suddenly, a young girl passed by and accidentally spilled a plate of steaming egusi soup on her dress. Adaora gasped in shock. "What is wrong with you?" "I'm sorry. It was a mistake," the girl mumbled. Adaora scowled. "You couldn't even say, 'Excuse me. Are you blind?'" The girl snapped. "Why are you shouting? Am I the reason you don't have a child? Must everyone suffer because you're angry at your womb?" The words hit Adaora like a stone to the chest. The crowd fell silent. She stared at the girl, stunned, mouth slightly open. Without a word, Adaora picked up her bag and walked out, holding back tears. Mrs. Ezine ran after her. "Adaora, please, it wasn't her fault." "I need to go change," Adaora said coldly. "I'll call you later." She drove home, her hands trembling. Back at the event center, Mrs. Ezine cornered the girl. "What nonsense did you just say?" she whispered angrily. The girl looked frightened. "But I only said what you told me to say." Mrs. Ezine's eyes widened. "Did I tell you to go that far, foolish girl?" "I'm sorry, Ma. I thought you wanted her upset." "Just go back to your post," she snapped. Meanwhile, Adaora had reached home, still shaking with humiliation and rage. She walked straight into the bedroom and changed out of her stained dress. Tunde, who had stayed back home that day, noticed her puffy eyes. "What happened?" he asked gently. Adaora broke down. "A young girl insulted me at the wedding. She mocked my childlessness, Tunde, in public." He held her close, speechless at first. "I don't understand why people think they have the right to hurt women who can't conceive. Is it a crime to be barren?" she cried. "It's not your fault, Ada. None of this is your fault." But deep down, both of them wondered, why was their journey so cursed? The insults didn't stop at public events. Whispers had started in Tunde's family long ago, but now they were louder.
especially after the wedding incident. One evening, Auntie Ronke visited. She was Tunde's elder sister, outspoken and blunt. After dinner, she pulled Adaora aside in the kitchen. 15 years, Adaora, 15. Maybe it's time to consider letting another woman give my brother a child. Adaora's hands froze over the soapy water. Auntie, what are you saying? I'm saying you've had your time. If you really love him, maybe you should let him have a second wife. Adaora turned slowly, her voice calm but shaking. I will not leave the man I've stood by for 15 years. If he chooses to leave, that's on him. But I won't make that decision for him. Tunde returned that night to find Adaora crying. When she told him what Ronke said, he was furious. I'll talk to her, he said. No, Adaora replied. I just need to know you won't give up on me. Tunde held her hands. Never. We're in this together. No one will replace you. But it was almost midnight when Adaora was startled by a knock on the gate. Tunde was out of town on a work trip to Lagos, and she was alone at home. She cautiously peeped through the curtain. A figure stood by the gate, tall, dressed in a faded agbada, his face hidden by shadows. Who is it? She called. There was no response. She hesitated, unsure whether to open the door. But something in her heart told her not to. She backed away slowly, locked the doors, and prayed in whispers. Later, she found a note shoved through the bottom of the gate. It was written on yellowed paper in clumsy handwriting. You carry a life, but the life has no breath. Until the gift is returned, tears will remain your food. Adaora dropped the paper and screamed. By morning, her hands trembled as she called Tunde. Something strange happened last night. Someone left a note. It doesn't make sense. Tunde returned the next day and read the note. What gift are they talking about? He asked. I don't know, Adaora replied, but her thoughts drifted to the wooden box from their wedding day, still unopened and collecting dust in a drawer. That evening, Adaora kept thinking about the strange man who left the scary note. Her heart was heavy. She sat quietly, trying to remember what gift he could be talking about. Then she remembered the small gift Auntie Neka gave her. On their wedding day, she quickly went to the bedroom, opened their old wedding box, and there it was. But now, looking at it clearly, it was not a wooden box like she always thought. It was a small, round food flask. It had beads and old symbols on it, with a tight lid on top. Tunde, she called. Do you remember this? Tunde came closer. Yes. Auntie Neka gave you that. I thought it was just something for decoration. Adaora held it in her hand. Tunde, it's hot. What? He asked. She gave it to him. Tunde touched it and quickly pulled his hand back. It's really warm. They looked at each other, shocked. Adaora slowly opened the lid. Immediately, steam came out. Inside the flask was hot soup. Real, thick Adaora soup with soft goat meat. It looked like someone had just cooked it that morning.
Is this even possible? Adaora asked, trembling. This gift is over 15 years old. How is the food still hot? Tunde said, this is not normal. Let's take it to Pastor Ayodele now. They rushed to the church. At the church, Pastor Ayodele listened to everything, the gift, the dreams, the years of waiting, and now this strange flask. He opened the flask and smelled the soup. It's real, he said. Hot soup after 15 years? Then he became serious. This is not an ordinary gift, he said. This is something spiritual. It is a covenant, a kind of deal made in the spirit world. As long as this food stayed hot and untouched, your womb was spiritually blocked. Adaora's mouth fell open. Tunde sat down slowly. It was feeding something in the spirit, the pastor continued. That's why no child could stay. That's why there was always pain. Pastor Ayodele carried the flask to the altar. He anointed it with oil and began to pray in strong tongues. The church shook. The lights flickered. Adaora held Tunde's hand tightly. Then suddenly, the flask burst open. The soup spilled out and turned into black ash on the floor. The air became quiet. Pastor Ayodele stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. It is finished, he said. The curse is broken. You are free now. Your womb is free. Tears fell from Adaora's eyes. Tunde held her close. This time, they cried, not from fear, but from peace. They were finally free. Around them, like a second skin. The fast began on a Sunday. For 7 days, Adaora and Tunde prayed fervently. They didn't eat until sunset. They anointed their home, burned the red cloth, and declared war against every evil holding her womb captive. The first 3 days passed quietly. On the 4th night, Adaora had a dream. She saw herself in a dark room holding a baby boy. A woman in purple tried to snatch the baby from her. They struggled until a bright light appeared, and the woman vanished. She woke up drenched in sweat. I think something is shifting, she told Tunde. On the final day, Pastor Ayodele came to their house and led a deliverance session. They destroyed the box and declared that every curse was broken. Tunde held Adaora's hand as tears streamed down her face. From today, the pastor declared, this home shall carry laughter. And for the first time in years, Adaora felt peace, not hope, not expectation, but peace. And that peace would soon grow into something more. 2 months after the fast, Adaora sat in the living room sorting laundry when she realized something strange. Her period was late. Normally regular like clockwork, she had dismissed the earlier days of delay as stress or hormonal changes. But now, it had been over 5 weeks. She sat quietly for a long time, pressing her palm against her lower abdomen. The fear of false hope wrapped itself tightly around her chest. By the time Tunde walked in from work, Adaora was pacing the room. I think I might be pregnant, she said, barely above a whisper. Tunde
dropped his bag immediately. "Are you sure? Did you do a test?" She shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "I'm scared." Without another word, he rushed out to get a pregnancy test kit. That evening, they sat in the bathroom together, watching the stick. The two lines came up bold and clear. Adaora screamed. Tunde grabbed her, lifting her off the ground, tears pouring down his face. "It's real. It's happening." But beneath the joy was a flicker of fear. They had seen this before. Positive tests, only for it to end in heartbreak. "We must be careful," Adaora said. "This one must stay." From that day forward, Adaora moved like glass, delicate, fragile, and cautious. She stopped going to her shop and barely left the house. Tunde hired a house help to take care of the chores, insisting she rest fully. They prayed together every night, anointed her stomach, and avoided all stress. But the pregnancy came with its challenges. At 10 weeks, she started spotting. Adaora screamed from the bathroom,
and Tunde ran in to find her shaking. "There's blood! Tunde, there's blood!" He carried her into the car and sped to the hospital. The doctor examined her and spoke carefully. The pregnancy is still intact, but she needs absolute rest and medical supervision. Tunde booked her into a private ward and stayed with her. For 2 weeks, Adaora didn't move much. Every time she turned in bed, she prayed silently. She wasn't going to lose this one, not again. Her mother came from their village near Ogbomoso to stay with her. "You will carry this child to term," she said, rubbing her back. "The enemy has failed." At 14 weeks, the bleeding stopped.
One sunny afternoon, Adaora stopped by a supermarket for the first time in months. She felt stronger and wanted to walk a little. She had just bought bottled water and a cold bottle of Coca-Cola when she heard a raspy voice behind her. "You carry life, but the life may not stay." She turned sharply, and there he was again. The same shabby man she had seen months ago. His eyes were wild, his clothing ragged, but his words clear. "You broke the curse, but the gift still breathes." Adaora's heart skipped. "Who are you?" she demanded. But he laughed and dashed into the street. People around looked confused. A few thought he was mentally ill, but Adaora knew better. Something about his presence always left a strange coldness behind. And what did he mean by "the gift still breathes"? That night, she couldn't sleep. Tunde stayed awake with her, holding her close. "I think the box, even though we destroyed it, something from it might still be tied to me," she said. "We'll pray again," he replied. "We're close to victory. That's why the enemy is fighting." That night, Adaora had a powerful dream. She stood on a wide riverbank, carrying her baby in her arms. Across the river, she saw the woman in the purple wrapper, Auntie Neka, the same woman who had given her the cursed gift on their wedding day. You should never have burned it," the woman said, her voice echoing like thunder. "You had no right," Adaora shouted. "You almost ruined my life," the woman snarled. "I gave you what I was given. The gift was not mine to curse, but I was told to pass it on." "By who?" Before she could answer, the river rose and swept the woman away. Adaora woke up gasping. She narrated the dream to Pastor Ayodele, who confirmed it. The woman was used. There is someone else, someone who instructed her, and they are still working against your joy. Adaora and Tunde intensified their prayers. They started a night vigil in their home every Friday. Their faith was no longer just about belief. It was warfare. As the months passed, Adaora's belly grew. So did her sense of awareness. Every knock on the door startled her. Every strange call gave her anxiety. One afternoon, Tunde's cousin, Kehinde, visited. While pretending to be concerned, she asked Adaora, "Are you sure it's not another fibroid?" Adaora blinked in shock. "What?" "I'm just saying, you know fibroids can grow big like that, especially after a certain age." Adaora stood up calmly. "Let me show you something." She brought out a printed scan, clear and detailed, showing the baby growing in her womb. Kehinde stared, embarrassed. "I don't need your concern," Adaora said firmly. "This child is a gift from God, not a mistake." Later that evening, Tunde confronted Kehinde. "I know some of you don't believe she's really pregnant. I know some of you wanted this marriage to fail. But this child is real, and nothing you do will change that." It was the first time Tunde openly challenged his family. And in that moment, Adaora felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. The day came like a whisper in the wind. It was a cloudy Tuesday in Ibadan. Adaora had just finished her midday prayers when the sharp pain hit her. At first, she thought it was the usual cramps she'd occasionally experienced during her pregnancy. But when the second wave came, deeper, heavier, she knew. The baby was ready. She called out to her mother, who rushed in with panic written all over her face. "It's time," Adaora groaned. Tunde, already on alert for weeks, quickly helped her into the car. He drove like a man possessed, horn blaring, ignoring every pothole as they sped toward the maternity hospital. Inside the delivery room, the pain intensified. Adaora screamed, cried, and gripped the sheets like her life depended on it. The nurses kept encouraging her, but something was off. The baby's heartbeat dropped suddenly. Outside, Tunde paced the corridor, sweat pouring down his face. The doctor finally emerged, his expression tight. "Her blood pressure is spiking. We may need to perform an emergency C-section." Tunde nodded vigorously. "Do whatever it takes. Please, save them both." The operation began. As they cut through layers of tissue, a nurse screamed. "The cord is wrapped around the baby's neck." Time felt like it stopped. Adaora, semi-conscious, heard faint murmurs of urgency and panic. In her drifting mind, she saw a vision of herself standing at a crossroads. In one hand, she held her baby. In the other,
the cursed box reappeared. Suddenly, a light burst through the darkness, and the box disintegrated into ash. She gasped and woke with a jolt. At the same time, in the delivery room, the baby let out a loud, healthy cry. The entire team exhaled. "It's a boy," the doctor announced.
Tunde rushed in just as the nurse swaddled the baby and handed him over. The sight broke him. Tears streamed down his face as he cradled the child he had waited 15 long years to meet. The child's fingers curled around his, soft and warm, alive and perfect. When they brought the baby to Adaora's bedside, she stared at him in disbelief. "So, this is you?" she whispered. "You're real?" The baby blinked as if recognizing her voice. Her arms trembled as she held him close. Her tears fell freely, soaking the blanket. "Thank you, Jesus. After all the pain, the shame, the battles, thank you." The next day, Tunde's family came to visit. Even Auntie Ronke, who once suggested he take another wife, stood in silence, staring at the child with wide eyes. I was wrong," she said quietly. "Forgive me." Adaora said nothing. She smiled, held her son close, and walked back into the room with her dignity intact. Naming ceremonies in Ibadan are grand, but Adaora insisted on something simple and private. Only a few close friends and relatives were invited. The baby was named Obina Tunde Olua, meaning "my father's heart, God's own." During the celebration, many came bearing apologies disguised as gifts. Gifts they had refused to send over the past 15 years. Tunde stood up and addressed the gathering. "For years, my wife was insulted, mocked, and labeled. But today, God has shamed every voice that rose against her. This child is not just a child. He is a testimony." Adaora didn't say much. She didn't need to. Her presence alone, peaceful, regal, glowing with motherhood, spoke volumes. Some of Tunde's relatives avoided eye contact, especially those who had secretly tried to interfere with their marriage. But Adaora had changed. She was no longer the woman who cried in silence. She was a mother now, and her joy was too deep for bitterness. It had been 3 months since the birth when Adaora finally traveled to her village near Ogbomoso with her baby. Her aunt, Auntie Neka, the same woman who gave her the wedding gift, was gravely ill. Adaora stood before her, her baby strapped to her back. "I came to show you what God gave me despite your efforts," she said. Auntie Neka coughed weakly. "It wasn't me. I swear. They forced me to do it." "Who?" "The woman who trained me in midwifery. She said, I must plant the gift at one wedding every year, or else. I didn't know it would last this long." Adaora stared at her. "You sold your soul to darkness, to destroy marriages." "I was only the hand, not the head. Forgive me, please." Adaora didn't reply. She left the room without anger, without revenge. The baby stirred on her back. He had started teething. That night, Auntie Neka passed away. Adaora knew the cycle had ended. On their 16th wedding anniversary, Tunde threw a small party in their compound. Family and friends gathered. Adaora wore a simple white dress. Baby Obina played on the mat as guests surrounded him with laughter and love. At some point, Pastor Ayodele stood up and asked for a moment to speak. This family is a living testimony. What the enemy planned for destruction, God has turned into glory. What was given as a cursed gift has now been rewritten by the finger of God. Adaora stood next to her husband, hand in hand. She took the microphone. I used to think the wedding gift cursed me, but now I know it only revealed the strength in me. It taught me faith, patience, and the power of standing even when everything else falls. The crowd clapped. Some wept. This, she pointed to her son, is the only gift I needed. As the evening sky turned gold, Adaora smiled at Tunde. Happy anniversary. Happy new beginning, he replied. And for the first time in 16 years, they danced, with their child in their arms and joy in their hearts. Please like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more African folk tales.